Hey guys, tonight we're setting sail into a foggy little footnote of history. One that's been haunting maps, prayers, and very lost sailors for over 1,000 years. Imagine this. Somewhere in the North Atlantic, wrapped in thick mist and mystery, lies an island. It's lush, it's full of singing birds, it might even glow. But here's the catch, it vanishes. Not metaphorically. I mean actually literally disappears. You think you found it, then poof, nothing but sea and confusion. St. Brendan's Island, they called it. Some people swore it was paradise. Others were pretty sure it was just seaweed and wishful thinking. You, of course, are about to go there. Spoiler, you probably won't survive, not because it's dangerous, but because the idea of navigating open sea in a glorified leather canoe while living off boiled seabirds and divine hope is, well, let's just say it's a no from modern insurance companies. So before you get comfortable, take a moment to like the video and subscribe, but only if you genuinely enjoy what I do here, and feel free to comment where you're listening, from and what time it is. I always love seeing who's drifting off around the world. Now dim the lights, maybe turn on a fan for that soft background hum, and let's ease into tonight's journey together. You're in a monastery in Ireland. It's the 6th century. Outside, the wind tastes like sea salt, and inside, the monks are whispering again. You overhear tales told by candlelight of an island far to the west, a place so green it makes Ireland look like someone left the color. Settings too low. A land of promise, rich with fruit, birdsong, and apparently an astonishing lack of sin. You feel it in your gut, that low tug of curiosity. The same itch that makes someone press a weird button on a vending machine just to see what comes out. So you listen more closely. Some monks think it's Eden, others think it's purgatory with better lighting. But one of them, Brendan, doesn't just talk. He starts preparing. He wants to see it for himself. You watch as he gathers 14 other monks, his crew, if we're being generous. They stitch together a boat called a currach, made from wood, leather, and the kind of faith that makes even seagulls nervous. They pack supplies, barley, salted fish, probably a few relics just in case, and then, with barely a compass between them, they sail west into the unknown. The first thing you feel out there isn't fear, it's cold. That wet, bone-seeping chill that clings to your robe like a grumpy cat. You try to keep your footing as waves toss the boat like a leaf in a soup pot. Occasionally you see bits of something, rock formations, whalebacks, poke through the mist, and then it happens. Land. Sort of. At first, it looks like a dark shape in the fog. As you row closer, it grows taller, greener, more real. Birds soar. Overhead, flowers bloom where no flowers should be. Your feet touch soil and it's warm, soft, almost humming beneath you. Some monks cry, others pray. One tries to record it, though ink doesn't like sea air. And just as you settle in, start to believe, and the fog rolls in again, you blink, it's gone, no island, no shore. Just cold salt and startled seabirds. You hear Brendan whisper, "We'll find it again," and maybe you believe him. After all, the sea gives and takes. Islands appear and vanish. And monks are very good at not giving up. What you don't know yet is that this won't be the last time this disappearing island causes a fuss. Over the next few centuries, it'll show up again. On maps, in stories, even in heated debates between scholars with very old beards. But for now, you're adrift, squinting into the mist, half wondering if you dreamt the whole thing. And by the way, did you remember to bring that herbal salve for sea blisters? No, that's okay. Neither did Brendan. Just one more reason why medieval exploration was 90% hope and 10%, well, damp disappointment. You close your eyes. The waves slap softly against the hull. Somewhere behind the fog, a mystery still waits, and you're not done chasing it yet. You wake to the sound of chanting. The sea hasn't stopped its slow lurch, and your back aches in the way only a wooden bench under a monk's elbow can manage. Brendan is already up, standing near the bow with arms stretched as if he's trying to hug the fog itself. You groan quietly and shift. Another day on the open sea with nothing but salt air, wet wool, and divine optimism to keep you going. But then the horizon flickers. At first, it looks like smoke. Then it roars. Flames shoot skyward from the water. The monks gasp. Some drop to their knees. You blink furiously. Is it a demon? Is this where purgatory keeps its furnace? Brendan just smiles. You've landed on what modern minds might call a volcanic island. But here, in the mind of a 6th century, Irish monk, it's something else entirely, a living creature. A punishment, a test, they row closer. The island hisses and spits fire. One monk starts reading aloud from Psalms, another vomits in a holy sort of panic. Brendan naturally suggests they land. You, however, have reservations. Something about docking on a flaming rock doesn't quite sit right. They do it anyway. You leap off onto solid ground, or what passes for it. The heat is unbearable, the air sulfur-thick and metallic. Beneath your feet, the stone pulses with tremors. And then, because of course this happens, a low rumble shakes the beach. A chasm cracks open not far from your feet. Lava glows below like the belly of some ancient beast. That's when Brendan realizes something. This is not an island. This is a whale. A whale so big, so old, that moss and dirt and whole trees have taken root on its back. The monks scramble to the boat. You trip over what might be a fin, and just before the beast dives, it lets out a moaning, bass-deep cry that sounds suspiciously like regret. Back in the boat, soaked and singed, someone tries to make sense of it. Brendan, to no one's surprise, interprets it as a sign from God, something about not being fooled by false paradises. You, meanwhile, are starting to think monks may have been the original conspiracy vloggers. Days pass. You float through fog and sun and silence. Some nights the stars are so clear it feels like you're inside a snow globe of light. Other nights you swear you hear music. Not birdsong, actual chanting. Once, in the distance, a glowing shape rises from the sea. Brendan calls it a sea angel. You call it definitely not normal. Each landfall is weirder than the last. There's an island where sheep outnumber rocks, another where demons throw hot metal at each other, which seems excessive. One especially cheerful spot is inhabited entirely by silent monks who glow faintly and serve roasted root vegetables with alarming politeness. None of it feels real, but it also doesn't feel fake. You're stuck in that strange middle ground where sleep-deprived minds blur miracle and madness. You note, though, that Brendan keeps writing. Each island logged, each omen interpreted. Even the incident where Brother Connell accidentally tried to bless a seal. The seal, for the record, was not impressed. This journey, you realize, isn't just about reaching some elusive green island. It's about the voyage itself. The weirdness, the wonder, the moments where your feet feel like they're standing both in this world and in some shimmering maybe. Of course, that doesn't stop the blisters, or the smell, or the fact that someone forgot to pack more than 3 pairs of sandals for 15 monks. But you get used to it. The sea has its rhythm. You find your own. And every time the fog thickens, every time the waves hush and your little boat seems suspended in dream, your heart leaps. Maybe this time it's not a whale, not a vision, not another fiery rock. Maybe this time it's the island. And just maybe, you're ready to see it. You've stopped asking what day it is. Time doesn't mean much anymore. Not when your clock is the wind and your calendar smells like fish. But Brendan has a system. He's marked the days with prayers, feasts, and the occasional incident of almost dying, but probably divinely protected. You've started calling it the liturgical GPS. This morning, the sea is unnervingly calm, the kind of flat, glassy calm that usually precedes something dramatic in a medieval manuscript. Brendan stands in the middle of the boat with his arms outstretched and announces, "Today is the feast of the mid-voyage miracle." A feast he has naturally just invented. He produces a half-loaf of bread that smells suspiciously like last week's half-loaf of bread. Then, as if guided by the Holy Spirit or sheer stubbornness, he tosses it into the sea. The bread floats, and as everyone watches, squinting with awe or concern, a fish leaps up, eats the bread, and vanishes with a ripple. "It's a sign," Brendan says. "You're pretty sure it's just a fish having a good day." Still, the monks are encouraged. A few start humming hymns. One even breaks out his emergency cheese ration. You don't have the heart to say it expired during Lent. That evening, you drift toward another island, or at least it looks like one. Low hills, odd trees, a few flickers of light in the distance. Brendan clutches the tiller and says, almost to himself, "This might be it." You can feel the boat trembling, not from the sea, but from the collective. Tension of 14 monks trying very hard not to shout. Finally, you land. The air smells of oranges and something faintly floral, like a scented letter you'd never admit to owning. The grass hums underfoot. You swear the trees sway in slow, sleepy rhythm, even though there's no wind. Then you hear the bells, not church bells, not warning bells. These are soft, distant, like someone ringing silver spoons underwater. The group fans out. You walk slowly, taking in a glowing river that hums like a lullaby. Birds with iridescent feathers sing in perfect harmony. One of them lands on your shoulder, chirps 3 notes, and then continues on as if you were just a layover on its spiritual journey. The monks begin singing. It's not planned. It just happens, like breathing. Brendan drops to his knees and whispers, "Praise be the promised land." You want to believe it, you really do, but then something tugs at your gut. A kind of déjà vu. Or maybe just that deeply Irish instinct that says, if it's too perfect, it's probably Fae-related. Brendan tries to mark the spot on a tattered parchment. You watch as he draws a crooked coastline with a glowing river and a grove of trees shaped like cathedral arches. Then he frowns. Because when he looks up, the island has changed. The trees aren't where they were. The river isn't glowing anymore. The birds are gone. The grass is silent, and the fog is back. Thick, creeping, swallowing. You shout. Brendan doesn't answer. Neither do the others. You run to the shore, tripping on roots that weren't there before. The boat is missing. No waves, no sound. Just soft, blank nothing. For a full minute, your heart races with a kind of ancient panic, the kind that knows when a story is about to take a turn. But then the mist parts just a little, and you see the boat just offshore, gently rocking, monks inside. Faces turned toward you in confusion. You'd been gone for seconds, maybe minutes, maybe longer. No one remembers the same details. Brendan says the birds spoke Latin. Brother Finn swears he heard bagpipes. One poor soul insists the island fed him a roasted pear, which is frankly the least believable part of all this. But the island's gone now, completely. Not even a ripple remains. The sea is calm again. As you drift away, you wrap your robe tighter, against the chill. You don't speak. Neither does Brendan. But in the silence you realize something. You were there, whatever it was. And it was real. Or at least, real enough to remember. You're not sure how long it's been since that shimmering island slipped away. Long enough for the monks to stop squinting into the mist like it's a magic eye puzzle. Long enough for someone to suggest rationing honey bread again, even though nobody remembers bringing honey in the first place. Still, Brendan insists they're close. You're back in open water, the kind that stretches in all directions like a blank page, just daring someone to write something foolish on it. The sun rises, in the wrong part of the sky today, or maybe it's just been that long. Your arms ache, your robes smell like salted sock stew, and you're pretty sure you've developed an allergy to seabirds. Then one morning you hear laughter. Not the usual snickering when Brother Donald forgets the lyrics to the Gloria. This is soft, distant musical laughter. You sit up, rub your eyes, and there it is again. A ripple, a shadow, a sparkle. Land. Real this time. Maybe. You paddle closer with the others. Breath held, hearts quiet. The island rises up from the sea like a dream remembered halfway through brushing your teeth. Mist hugs its edges. The trees are impossibly tall, their trunks twisting like braids. You hear birdsong, yes, but also something else. Whispers. Words. You disembark. The air is warm, the ground soft, and the sky a shade of blue that painters would call unlikely. Rivers of clear water glow faintly in the underbrush. Flowers open as you pass. And the birds? They don't just chirp, they speak. Not sentences exactly, but syllables. Snippets of psalms, bits of familiar prayers. One even sings the opening lines of the Nicene Creed before fluttering off with what sounds suspiciously like a chuckle. Brendan is ecstatic. This, he declares, is surely the promised land. The Isle of the Blessed, he calls it. St. Brendan's Island, he proclaims, as if already imagining the sponsorship deal. The monks fan out, collecting glowing water in wooden bowls, examining trees that seem to bow politely as they approach. One discovers fruit that tastes like almonds dipped in honey and regret. Another finds a path that leads nowhere and loops back on itself like a holy metaphor. You wander further than you should. At one point you step through a thicket and find yourself in a clearing with no wind, no sound, no movement at all. A perfect stillness. A rabbit sits in the middle of the space, staring at you with unnervingly wise eyes. You bow slightly. It blinks and hops away. Somehow you feel you've passed a test, but when you return, something's changed. The island feels thinner, like it's stretching itself to stay visible. You notice the trees are dimming, the sky's gone a paler blue. The birds no longer speak. You rush back to the boat. Brendan is already there, staring out to sea. He says nothing as you board. No one does. The silence is heavy, not sad, exactly, just full. As you push off, the island begins to dissolve. Not sink, not disappear in a puff of smoke, just unweave itself. Threads of color floating away on the wind. The land behind you becomes light, then mist, then nothing. One of the younger monks cries softly. Another records the location as best he can, even though no star chart could ever hold this kind of place. Back on the open water, Brendan finally speaks. "It wasn't meant to stay," he says. You nod, because somehow you knew that too. And yet, here's the strange part. It's not sad. Not really. You were there. Again. And others will go looking. And maybe, just maybe, someone else will find it. Or maybe it finds you. You settle in for the night, the water gently rocking the boat like the arms of some enormous, ancient lullaby. And just before you fall asleep, you hear a bird call out one last word into the darkness. It sounds a lot like soon. You drift into morning on a sea of mist and slow, creaking wood. The sun, if it's there at all, seems to have called in sick. Everything is pale and soft-edged, like you've slipped into a watercolor painting that someone left out in the rain. Brendan, of course, is chipper. He claims the mist is holy. "A veil between worlds," he says, dramatically pulling his hood up, which would be more impressive if he didn't immediately trip over a rope. Brother Kyaran chuckles softly behind his psalter. "You're too tired to do much more than blink at the fog like it personally offended you. That's when the chanting starts. Faint at first, drifting through the air like incense. Then stronger, fuller. Monks, all male voices, low and resonant, singing. A language you recognize but can't quite name. Not Latin, not Gaelic. Something older and deeper. Like the sound your bones might make if they decided to pray. Everyone goes quiet. Even the sea seems to pause. Ahead, land emerges. Jagged cliffs, dark stone. A shore scattered with massive, smoothed boulders that look placed there by giants with oddly artistic sensibilities. You land at the base of a narrow path winding up the cliffside. It's slick with mist, but Brendan insists. You climb. At the summit, a stone monastery reveals itself, ancient even by ancient standards. No signs of life, just mossy walls, blackened, windows and a heavy silence. And yet the singing continues. You follow the sound, through arched doorways, down a corridor that somehow echoes before you take a step, into a chapel, roof open to the sky, vines weaving through the pews like green lace. They're there, not monks exactly, not people either. Figures cloaked in shadow and light, kneeling, singing with mouths that don't quite move. One turns slightly toward you, but its face is a shimmer of memory. Something you forgot as a child and never got back. You don't speak. You don't dare. Brendan kneels. So do the others. You stand at the threshold, unsure whether stepping inside would count as devotion or hubris. You choose to wait. Listen. Breathe in the scent of stone and rain and whatever eternity smells like. One of the figures rises and walks toward you. You tense, but all it does is place something in your hand. It's a shell, smooth, warm, and humming faintly, like a distant lullaby you can't quite place. You don't ask questions, you simply nod, and the figure returns to the chorus without a sound. Later, on the boat, no one speaks for a long time. Then someone finally whispers, "Were they angels?" Brendan shakes his head. "No," he says, "older. You don't sleep that night. You just stare at the shell, watching it pulse gently in your palm like it's dreaming. The next few days pass in reverent silence, until one morning the fog lifts, just enough to see a shimmer on the horizon. This time, there are no birds, no fire, no illusions of paradise, just a shape, low, green, quiet. You all know what it means, St. Brendan's Island, or at least the version of it you were meant to find. Brendan says nothing. He simply adjusts his robe, lifts the rudder, and sails toward it. No fanfare, no miracle bread, just quiet conviction. The monks begin to hum again. You can't tell if it's a hymn or something older. Maybe it doesn't matter. You run your thumb over the shell once more, it hums back. The wind slows to a hush, the kind of stillness that makes you think twice before breathing too loudly. Ahead of you, St. Brendan's Island finally solidifies, not just a shadow in the fog or a hallucination sponsored by hunger and divine ambition, but something you can name, touch, stand on. The boat slides onto a gentle shore. No crashing waves, no dramatic birds. Just soft sand and the muffled crunch of feet, hesitant to believe they've arrived. You step off last. The ground is cool beneath your sandals, springy with moss. Trees bow inward, not in welcome, but like they're sharing a secret. The air tastes faintly of honey and salt, like someone distilled a sunrise. No paths, no ruins, no throne waiting for a saint to claim. Brendan drops to his knees again, he's been doing that a lot lately, and whispers something you don't catch. A prayer, or maybe just a thank you. The others spread out. Some begin gathering samples, leaves shaped like teardrops, stones that shimmer in shades you've never seen on the mainland. Brother Ian finds a patch of grass that plays a low harmonic, toned when the wind runs through it, and you briefly consider whether grass can earn sainthood. You wander, farther this time. The island isn't large, but it seems to change shape behind you. You don't question it anymore, you've seen weirder. At the center you find a pool, circular, impossibly still. The surface reflects the sky beneath your feet rather than above. Your head, stars, not clouds. You lean over and for a moment your own face looks younger or older, or like someone you might have been had your life gone differently. You blink and it's just water, you touch it anyway. It hums. That evening, Brendan calls everyone together. He speaks softly, no sermon, just thoughts set gently into the air. He tells you this isn't a place to conquer. It's not a reward, it's not even a destination. It is, he says, a reminder. You ask, of what? He smiles. That searching is sacred, that wandering is its own kind of prayer. He doesn't cry, but his voice wobbles just enough that you pretend not to notice. That night, you sleep on the mossy floor of a glade that glows faintly around the edges. The stars are brighter here. You dream of every version of yourself you've left behind. Along the journey, scared, tired, hopeful, hungry, they sit beside you in the dark and hum old songs together. In the morning, the island is already fading, not dramatically, not as punishment, just naturally, like it never meant to stay in. One place too long. You board the boat in silence, no one says goodbye. Brendan sits at the bow. He doesn't look back. As the island slips beneath the mist once more, the monks start to sing, soft, off-key, but with that fragile harmony that only comes from people who've spent too long together in a boat, not meant for long voyages. You look down at the shell still nestled in your hand. It's silent now, but you still feel it. The memory, the hum, the possibility. And as the waves carry you away, the world feels quieter, gentler. You lean back against the worn wood of the boat, close your eyes, and let the sea rock you slowly, endlessly. The last thing you remember before sleep is the sound of the wind whispering, not in words but in warmth, in rhythm, in peace, end of script, sweet dreams,